Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with the Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. This is the Supernatural Part 3. 3. Almost said 4. But no, this is Dark Shadows, the Supernatural Part 3. And this Supernatural gets into the undead, more specifically a vampire. But before we can unearth any vampires or open up any coffins, we got to go back into the past. Not quite literally. There's no time travel here, at least not yet. That's probably going to be part 4. So we have to go back into Elizabeth's past. Elizabeth Collins' daughter, to be specific. Fresh out of the hospital from the comatose state Laura put her in, Joan Bennett is back, folks. Back in Collinwood as Elizabeth Collins' daughter. So they would periodically show scenes of Elizabeth lying in a hospital bed. It was at that point in time the only time Elizabeth left the grounds of Collinwood. And she was asking where her key where her key to the basement was. So what are they doing here as in the writers? So before the release of Barnabas, you have the introduction of 2 characters. First, Jason McGuire, played by actor Dennis Patrick. And Jason is a con artist. He's a swindler in every way, shape, and form. Jason's not going to arrive at town by himself, though the writers are going to sort of present that a little bit. He does call somebody, and you could take an educated guess on who he calls, which is Willie Loomis. But mostly we see Jason by himself until we don't. The man Jason brings with him is thief, short-tempered thief, and violent man, Willie Loomis. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble talking here. Willie is very dangerous as a character. Played by actor James Hall for a couple episodes. Going to be played by a different actor. I'll mention John Carlin. I just mentioned John Carlin. So Jason begins blackmailing Liz. You might say, what about what's with this here when you're watching this? Because this doesn't seem like it's leading towards an unearthing of a vampire, right? Well, what's going on here behind the camera, Dan's daughters suggested he should do a vampire. He agreed. Now, here's the kicker. Dan Curtis, at some point in time during the filming The Dark Shadows, leaves to go film a movie. He leaves for Europe. So he's not in New York casting when they're casting the role of vampire Barnabas Collins. He's making a movie about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, starring Jack Palance. The writers, which include Ron Sproat, are the ones doing the casting. So it's the writers and producers and the directors who are casting Jonathan in every way, or they're casting Barnabas, if you will. And many people are going to say, "Well, they just picked up Bela Lugosi." No, they did not. This Jonathan was not Bela Lugosi. I would strongly, vehemently disagree with that in every way, shape, and form. Did he look ghoulish? Sure, absolutely. I'm not denying that at all. But what I will say is, keep in mind, there are people on the staff who know Jonathan, who know his capabilities. They may have not known where they exactly were going to take a character. But in my opinion, there have always been 2 camps to this. There's been the Dan Curtis camp, which anytime I've heard Dan give an interview, He says, well, the plan was to kill him off within a month. I think that was Dan's plan, to kill him off within a month. The writers, I'm not so sure they had a plan, but I think they at least had somewhat of a question in their minds, which was, do we really want to kill this character off? When we, whether we had, and that's Ron Sproat, I think, thought of Jonathan when they were conceiving this character somewhat. And when Jonathan showed up, obviously Jonathan's agent told him about the audition. So he got an audition for the role and he nailed it. They wanted an actor who had obviously theater presence, who knew how to play a heavy, but also knew not to lean into too many things that would lead down a certain road. So, from a writing standpoint, they watch exactly what they're giving Jonathan without giving him too much. They let his facial expression, his blocking, along with his acting, tell a different story. This is not the story of Count Dracula. This is not the story of Bela Lugosi's Dracula at all. And yes, I'm going to get into the whole Maggie Evans kidnapping in this video. But before that, so in front of the camera, Jason McGuire Jason and Willie move into the Great House. Willie, who is bothering and harassing the females, the women of Collinwood, Nancy Barrett's Carolyn Collins Stoddard and Alexander Mulkey's Victoria Winters. To be clear, he's harassing their characters. The character of Willie Loomis is harassing characters. He's heavily flirting with them when they're not flirting with him at all. So Carolyn pulls Uncle Roger's revolver from the drawer and threatens to blow Willie's head off, which this causes Liz to tell Jason, I want Willie out of this house. And Liz is even willing to go as far as to call the police. And Jason realizes his bluff is being called, folds, and says, I'll get Willie out the house. So, John Hall is not known for this Dark Shadows role. He's only here a couple episodes, but let's give the devil his due, and I mean that in every positive way. He lays every bit of groundwork that you're going to see John Carlin continue, and James Hall deserves that credit. The antagonist towards Burke, the attitude towards other males, toward the females, James Hall deserves all that. Now, let's enter John Carlin. Is there a difference? Really, the fight that happens in the Blue Whale between Burke and Willie. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention the portraits. So before James Hall's exit here as Willie Loomis, there's an episode where David Collins shows him the portraits. He showed in the drawing room. He shows him Jeremiah. He shows him, Isaac. And then once they come out of the drawing room into the foyer, David says, "Oh, and that's Barnabas Collins," and Willie is admiring the jewels, obviously, and wondering, "Oh, where's this guy buried?" So enter John Carlin. Keep in mind, James Hall's character, like I said, he built a bit of a heated rivalry with Burke. Not that it's much of a rivalry because Burke can hand him his ass, and does. So Mitchell Ryan's character, Burke Devlin, fights John Carlin's Willie Loomis in the Blue Whale in the bar. And John Carlin's character, Willie Loomis, pulls a knife. The fight escalates, obviously. Burke wins out by knocking out Willie Loomis. It's a TKO in the first round, ladies and gentlemen. Um, so Willie is licking his wounds, and there's a very interesting conversation here. It doesn't necessarily go anywhere because Willie is still saying, "Oh, I'll get him. I'll get him, and I'll kill him." He's talking about Burke Devlin. And Jason just get out of town. I don't need this. Because to him, if Jason's mind is, if Willie causes me enough problems, I'm going to have to leave. And Willie's causing him a lot of problems right now. Not too much that he can't handle, but problems. Those problems aren't going to get any smaller. So John Carlin's Willie Loomis goes down the road of research before his exit out of Collinwood, if you will, because Willie has no money. You see, he can't just up and leave Collinwood. So Jason McGuire is once again using his powers of blackmail to Liz for Elizabeth to give Willie $500 in cash, which back in 1967 is a good deal of money. So Liz, reluctantly agrees because she doesn't want to spend any time in prison for supposedly murdering her husband. I say supposedly because there's no body. That's the plot that's going on. Jason supposedly buried Paul Stoddard's body in the basement, but we didn't actually see him bury a body in the basement. Spoiler alert, there's no body in the basement. Currently, my body is not in the basement. I'm joking. But my body isn't in the basement. You see, it's here. It's here, sitting right here. So you have Willie researching the Collins family history while he's waiting for his untimely exit out of Collinwood, and Jason tells, as he's researching, Jason overhears people like Mrs. Johnson and other people say, well, Willie's been doing a lot of research on the Collins family and the portrait of Barnabas. And Jason's getting kind of suspicious. Like, okay, what's up here, Willie? He knows Willie Loomis up and down. And there's a conversation between him and Willie in episode 210 that I really love, where Jason grabs him. He says, "This portrait, what is it to you? Art? No, come on. Like, you're not." Jason is calling his bluff. You're not fooling me. I know you got something going on. Or like, just, he goes, "What's on your mind?" And Willie says, "Just money." And Jason says, "Okay, I saw Elizabeth's man come in with it. Go up and get your stuff packed." Basically, even to this point, Jason is tired of Willie's shit in every way, shape, and form because, hey, you've kind of gotten yourself into a bit of trouble here. That's not what I was looking for. I'm trying to pull off this blackmail scheme and get a lot of money out of it and even set myself up for life because he's tired of living life on the lam. So Willie does not get this $500. Jason has it. Liz gives it to Jason, says, "Make sure he goes." I will. Willie, to Jason, mysteriously disappears. But to us, he goes to the mausoleum. And you might say, well, is he going to... What is Willie looking for, you might ask? Now, to be fair, Willie is not looking for Barnabas himself. I want to be clear. Willie Loomis, as a character, his intention was never to find Barnabas. His intention was to open Barnabas Collins' mother's grave, the grave of Naomi Collins, who was supposedly given jewels by a pirate and buried with them. And her coffin is in said mausoleum. Now, I've talked about how there was very little build to Laura. There is some build to Barnabas. It's all done through the portrait, the backstory of Barnabas's mother. Barnabas's mother being buried with jewels that was given to her by a pirate. You can determine whether that's true or not. um, so Willie Loomis brings up a hook and pulley system. Uh, he's going to hook it up from on the coffin to this little hook in this lion's mouth, and he pulls and pulls. Naomi's coffin does not budge, but a secret door opens up, revealing a chained coffin. And you can take an educated guess what's in that chained coffin, folks. And if you haven't, it's Barnabas himself. It's a vampire. So Willie Loomis, realizing, okay, chains are a lot easier to knock off than a cemented coffin lid that is sealed shut. So he gets a hammer and a little chisel thing, and he knocks off the chains. He opens the coffin, and he sees the jewels, and then he sees eyes open up to realize there's a living person in the coffin. A hand grabs his heart, which isn't the hand of Jonathan. It's the hand of the actor who played Jeremiah, the ghost of Jeremiah. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble, like I said, talking. So, my apologies. So what you have happen here is Barnabas is out of the coffin. Episode 211, Jason spends that entire episode searching for Willie Loomis because he never gave Willie the money because he could never find him. And Jason starts to learn that Willie did leave. He learns from Victoria Winters, he left the house carrying things. And Jason's like, well, what was he carrying? He was just carrying things. I don't know. I thought it was his bags, but it wasn't. And Jason even realizes it wasn't his bag, so what it was Willie carrying. Then Jason talks to Mrs. Johnson, and she says, well, he kept asking about that man in the picture, and Jason knows all this already. And then Jason hears about the legend of Naomi Collins from Sarah. It's from Sarah Johnson. It's the missing piece to Jason's puzzle, in a sense. Okay, why was Willie asking about this guy? Well, this guy's mother was buried with Joseph, of course. So Jason, who's been told by Elizabeth to look in a few places that would be less desirable, like a goddamn cemetery, Jason goes and searches said cemetery. He runs into the old caretaker. No Willie Loomis in sight. He does find an abandoned cigarette butt on one of the coffins, which is one of Willie's cigarettes that he knows Willie smokes. Jason comes in from the long night that he had, the long day he's had. He kicks off his coat. The sun is set, and Jason lays his coat on the table. Mrs. Johnson hands her coat on the door. Keep in mind, Mrs. Johnson has seen this same said portrait that Willie Loomis has had. She knows what the portrait looks like. She knows what the man in the portrait looks like. As she's handing up Jason's coat for him, there's a rap on the door. There's a knock, if you will. Mrs. Johnson opens the door, and her eyes are like deers in headlights. She is staring at a man who she swears is a ghost. Though she doesn't say it, her eyes betray her. He introduces himself that he's Elizabeth Collins' daughter's cousin. Her cousin is calling from England, as he says. She lets him in. Remember the one? You know what the word for vampires is? Don't invite him into the house. Even if they claim to be your long lost cousin, who you haven't heard or seen, even if they actually look like your cousin. Okay, yeah, it's a life lesson for you guys. So Barnabas, played by Canadian-born actor Jonathan Frid, is here as Barnabas, and it's the next episode. He tells Mrs. Johnson, "Oh, and madam, would you tell her that it's Barnabas Collins that is calling for her, that is wanting to speak to her, basically." And the next episode, you have Jonathan, who has removed his coat. He's strolling around the room. and he's staring at the portrait. And Elizabeth comes down the stairs, and Jonathan Fritz Barnabas looks at her. Oh, it is Barnabas. She recognizes him too, recognizes the portrait, and he explains that he is actually the descendant of the man in the portrait. His great, 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 great ancestor. And it's like, holy shit. um, obviously, so when did I know Barnabas was a vampire? Immediately. Immediately. Look, I'd seen enough horror movies or scary movies, if you will, special ones of vampires or slashers. That this is a vampire. Um, Jonathan's performance here is magnificent. Magnificent. It's episode 212 that really lets the audience know this is much more than Dracula. By the end of 212, you not just the conversation with Elizabeth, not just a conversation with David in the old house about Josette's portrait, how if you were a Collins, she would help you. Yes, we're going to get into the ghost again. Because also his conversation with Victoria Winters in episode 212, because in episode 212, we're going to get the second person who knows Josette. And I mean by knows, he lived, he knew her way back when she was around in the 1790s. So yes, Barnabas is that old. By the way, speaking of age, Jonathan Frid is in his 40s when he plays this role. So you know. Which I don't get why people thought Jonathan was in his 20s. I get the makeup. He looks young. He looks great. As my wife puts it, he looks handsome, and she's not wrong. He does look handsome. Episode 212, the conversation with Josette's portrait is my favorite scene in episode 212. How does Jonathan Fritz Barnabas put this? I was a Collins. Where were you when I was turned into... I'm sorry, I was a Collins. Why didn't you help me? Where were you when I was turned into something even my own father loathed? If his ghost is here with yours, tell him I've come home. I am free now and alive. The chains in which he bound me with are broken. You know, it's a great line. I probably messed up some of that, but it is a great line. And he says, I've come to live the life I never had, whatever that will turn out to be. To me, this always, when I first watched this episode, I was 14 when I watched this. So I was in high school. Keep in mind that hearing this as a 14-year-old, I felt sympathy for this character already, and they haven't even given you his backstory. They're nowhere near that yet. What did I think of the kidnapping of Maggie Evans? You know, I always joke around about it, so I'm not going to joke around about it here. To be clear, Catherine Lee Scott's character did play Josette, not just the living version of Josette, but she did play Josette's ghost. When you see Josette's ghost and appear behind the bookcase talking to Alexandra's character, Victoria Winters, that's Catherine Lee Scott's voice you hear. You can kind of make out Catherine Lee Scott's face a bit behind the white veil and the ghostly image. So it is Catherine. But from a canon standpoint as well, I do have to mention a lot of people have seen Josette's portrait by the time Barnabas rolls around. Living characters, David, Sam Evans, Joe has seen it. let me think. Victoria has seen it.
Hmm.
Burke has seen it. Roger has seen it, and not one person. By the way, Sam Evans has seen it. Not one person, including Sam Evans, which is supposed to be Maggie's father, makes mention of how she looks like Josette. So there's no care. I talked about how there's no build at times in Dark Shadows. This is what I mean by build up. There's no character. There's no build up to Maggie's likeness to Josette. No one is saying, "Oh, Maggie, you look just like Josette did." Nobody says that in the original series. Your first sort of recognition of this is Barnabas. When Barnabas starts going to her work, you don't see his reflection in the mirror. He scares her. Oh, did I startle you? Um, and so, and he did. And you hear the wolves howling. You hear the dog. Sorry, you hear the dogs howling, and he's intimidating her. He's scaring her. Keep in mind, no one has seen Willie Loomis. Jason keeps looking for him. Finally, Willie does show up in the Blue Whale of all places. You'll also hear the story of a calf's blood has been completely drained um, from Joe Haskell. Joe, you're gonna have bigger fish to fry here, dude. Your girlfriend is about to be kidnapped by a vampire. Um, and Kathleen Scott's Maggie Evans, who works as a cook and a waitress in a little diner, does get kidnapped. Barnabas pays her father $1,000 to paint a new portrait of him, which is in every way a modern update version of the original portrait. In a way, a more modern take of it. God. Yes, I'm going to pay you $1,000 for your portrait, and I'm also going to kidnap your daughter. That's Barnabas's motto. Barnabas does kidnap Maggie Evans. He bites her. Maggie has some sickly dreams of being buried alive, being dead, and basically being undead. Um, now, what does Barnabas do here well? What do Barnabas and Maggie Evans or Jonathan Frid, Kathleen Scott do well? Their chemistry is amazing. The scenes are absolutely stunning in black and white. I love the black and white episodes of Dark Shadows. The episodes in color are really good too. So I'm not against Dark Shadows in color at all. Just the black and white episodes do a lot for I think a lot of people, and they do a lot for me as a viewer of Dark Shadows. Um, so you have great. By the way, all these scenes, a lot of the scenes you see when Maggie is being dressed like Josette, when she's wearing the white gown, when she's in Josette's room. All these scenes are in the old house. Now the scene where Maggie meets Barnabas is obviously in the hotel lobby, and then they talk in the little diner that's in the hotel. Um, Maggie is kidnapped from her father's home inside her own bedroom. Yes, Barnabas enters her bedroom. How dare he? Um, he bites her. The vampires that bite women on the neck. Now, many people might ask, well, did he bite John Carlin's character on the neck? No, John Carlin's character, Willie Loomis, was bit on the wrist. They make mention of this in Dark Shadows in the episodes where his wrist is very discolored. It's very discolored. It's gray almost. There's some color returns to it during the day. It's like Jesus. But you don't get to see the discoloration. It's not something that's grotesque. Again, when you're dealing with the older shows of the past, less is more. So you don't need all that blood that you would get in the 80s. And again, am I a fan of blood? Yes. I don't mind it, is what I'll say. But it's not always necessarily to show it. You can camouflage it very well, which Dark Shadows did very, very well. You don't need to show bloodletting. You can suggest it happens, but you don't always have to show it. And Dark Shadows did a very great job of doing just that. So Willie asked, or sorry, no, Barnabas asked Elizabeth if he can move into the old house, and he asked again, and finally she lets him. Which this brings Willie into the old house with Barnabas. And as soon as everybody finds out Willie's working for Barnabas, they kind of confront him about it. He says, I got Willie, don't worry. And he does, because you see, he beats Willie with his cane. Because keep in mind, Barnabas lived during a different time period in 1790s when there were this little thing called slaves, or servants, if you will. And you know what they did to slaves back in the day? They beat them. They beat their servants too, because that's what they were to them. A rich, entitled character, right? That's Barnabas. Barnabas's dad. Barnabas also did not have the best role model father either. Joshua was a prick. Was not a nice man. So Barnabas beating Willie, it's nothing new to him. Willie does not like. There are black and blue marks, very well done effect-wise on John Carlin's face. The makeup is really good. You should check that out, by the way, if you have not checked out these episodes. The makeup is superb. I mean, absolutely superb. I actually prefer the makeup here, because again, in this episode, than I do the Phoenix Arc. The Phoenix Arc had very cool effect. But you don't need a ton of special effects all the time either. And Barnabas is the longest arc ever in Dark Shadows history. Proves this. He becomes now, obviously, historically, Barnabas becomes one of the most popular characters in television history. Jonathan Frid, obviously, playing the character. Now, so Barnabas, has beaten Willie, up and stuff. You have the introduction of a little girl, whose name is Sarah. And while Maggie, by the way, what I love most about Maggie Evans, before her escape, sort of in defiance of Barnabas, she has the music box playing, and she says, "My name is Maggie Evans," and she closes it, and she does it. And this is right in defiance of Barnabas saying, "I am not going to be this woman you want me to be. I'm my own woman." It's one of the most powerful messages in Dark Shadows, and it's a message you appreciate. Barnabas is still sort of teasing her. You also see a very interesting. I know I mentioned a girl, and I go right into this, so I apologize. Please forgive my rambling. I'll get back to the little girl, I swear. So I want to touch upon this before I get into the Ghost of Sarah, because you do have that go on here, and this is more than one part. Again, I'm on part 3 here. You have a very interesting situation here. So keep in mind, I've said about Willie being beaten by Barnabas, because Barnabas has had no problem hitting him. And this has been consistent enough to think that Barnabas is just going to fly off the handle, right? I mean, he has no problem grabbing women by the throat. He does that to Maggie when she leaves. Now she's going to escape for good here in a moment, but before I get into that, Willie, he's going to go down to the basement to kill Maggie. She's in a locker room, right? She's in a jail cell. Again, because those houses were built not for just luxury, they were built because it was built during the Revolutionary War. It was probably built more for defense than anything else, fictionally speaking, of course. So you have a very interesting conversation. Willie Loomis has completely reformed here to a degree. He's not the knife wielding psychopath guy who's going to kill somebody anymore. He's the humble servant in every way. He's concerned about David walking home. He's, because he hears the dogs and Barnabas is looking right at him. I love Jonathan's line. Well, I can't let the child wander alone in the bewildering dark now, can I? Such a cold line. And it's cool. Oh, sorry, in the growing dark, I should say. Um, Again, I love Dark Shadows. Very, very, my favorite TV show. And Willie is talking to Barnabas before he goes down in the basement, and I keep going off on a tangent. I'll try to focus. The fact that Barnabas is listening to Willie is sort of letting you even know more. If you were suspicious this guy has a soul, this is not just a bloodletting vampire. In 212, you get that a little more here with this conversation. Because when I first saw this, I'm thinking, okay, he's just going to turn around and hit him again. It's him not doing that sort of opens your eyes and go, okay, there's a lot more going on here than what we all thought. Maggie's escape. What can a vampire do? Okay, the ghost of, oh, sorry, I asked a question. I'm going to go off on another tangent. This is the ghost of Sarah Collins here. So the ghost of Sarah, who is Barnabas's sister, no, Barnabas did not kill her, so there's not that. We don't have that happen. She does die searching for him, by the way, when she was alive. So until he found her, and then he found her. She died of pneumonia. She died of an illness. Now, Sarah Collins has been visiting Maggie Evans, saying about a friend. Oh, you're my friend. She teaches Maggie a rhyme that helps open up a secret passage in the jail cell, the little jail cell that Maggie's in. Spoiler alert. The old house had secret passages. Why wouldn't it? We hear about secret passages in episode 212, so that's not shocking. So the ghost of Sarah helps Maggie escape, and Maggie's going through these long, dark corridors. Don't worry, Barnabas is in hot pursuit, and here's where the rubber meets the road. I say that because, I asked, what can a vampire do? Well, a vampire has the ability to teleport back, in front of somebody. He also has mind control abilities. Now, I know this boils down to the cost of effects, and, again, they weren't really doing that in this episode. They weren't having Jonathan's character jump forward to back from an effect standpoint, but I will get into the effect they do, in a sense, have him teleport, just not in front of Maggie. This is where my character assertion is. Barnabas had no intention of killing Maggie. He goes down there, sure, but he's not going to do it. Because if he wanted to do it, he could. Here's a guy who can disappear at will because of his powers, and he knows it. He knows how to use them. He's been using them ever since he got out. But he doesn't kill her. She's laying there on the ground in front of him. He could easily kill her. He doesn't. This is somebody with a lack of intent. I mean, if he hadn't, look, we've seen the intent when he does kill. We've seen that with Jason. We're going to see it again with Dr. Dave Woodard, and I'll get into those. One of those in another video. I'm not going to get into both in this video. Sorry. Maggie. So you might ask, is Kathleen Scott's character written off the television? No. No, she's still going to be key to this story. But this is also going to introduce another character. So Sam Evans, Dr. Dave Woodard, and Joe Haskell are all going to lie their ass off and say Maggie Evans is dead. Maggie Evans' character is not dead. And the first person who hears this news, by the way, is Barnabas. He teleports to the hospital. Because Collinsport only has one goddamn hospital. It's a small town. It's not small. Because again, Wincliffe is in Bangor, so yeah. Sorry, I'm going long here. So Maggie is put in Wincliffe. Barnabas, you know, obviously he wants a new Josette. He wants to replace Maggie with somebody else. And they're talking about, he's talking about that with Willie. Willie detects he's meeting Victoria Winters. Jason McGuire, by this time, has been kicked out of Collinwood. They've exposed him in his lies that Paul Stoddard was not buried in the basement. Keep in mind, this is how important this is. It's always important for characters sometimes who, this might sound morbid, but who they kill off. Barnabas had not killed anybody since coming out the coffin. So the writers and we got to give the audience a body. We got to give Barnabas a kill. If we can't give him a kill, all those other threats are going to be meaningless. We just let Maggie escape. We wrote Maggie's escape from a character standpoint. Now, who's the one dirtbag we can get away with killing? Jason McGuire. He's a con artist. He's a no good thief. He's a liar. Yeah, Barnabas lies, but this is going to be our hero. Barnabas is going to be our hero. Now, Jason sees the jewels. He asks Willie where they are. Willie is reluctant, but he eventually tells Jason they're with him. They're in his coffin with him. Oh, Willie, don't try that with me. Jason doesn't believe him. Jason goes down to the basement and opens Barnabas's coffin. Night has set. The hand this time it is Jonathan Frid's hand, and he kills Jason. They bury Jason's body in the secret room in the mausoleum. Willie is mourning the death of his friend, by the way. Willie is not. Willie is sad that he had to bury a friend. He goes, "Did you ever have to lose a friend?" And he said, Yes, I did a long time ago. And this is sort of a conversation into the ghost of Sarah. Sarah died a long time ago. Sarah was his best friend. Josette was his love, if you will. Sarah's his best friend. Played by Sharon Lynch. So, actress Sharon Lynch. I'm sorry if I forgot to mention that. So, Maggie at Wincliffe. Jason's dead. Barnabas has his sights set on Victoria Winters. So, what are the writers going to do here? And to sort of leave you with this segue here is a lot. Okay. I'm not going to wrap this video up yet. I have a lot of other things to mention, so I apologize. I know this video is going to go long. Victoria has always been obsessed with the past, for the most part, because she has no mother and father of her own. She gets engaged to Burt Devlin, but they never marry. Burt flies off in a plane, and his plane crashes, and there's a debate whether he's alive or dead as a character. No, it's not Mitchell Ryan playing him, by the way, when that happens. It's Anthony George. Barnabas still has his sights set on, Vicky. Keep in mind, you've had a brand new character introduction. The character introduction of Dr. Julia Hoffman. played by actress Grayson Hall. And by the way, her husband Sam Hall was not a writer on Dark Shadows at this time. In fact, it would be Grayson Hall who suggested to Dan Curtis, "Hey, my husband's a writer." So there you go. Keep it in the family, right? So Grayson Hall, very talented actress. She's playing Dr. Julia Hoffman, who is treating Maggie Evans. She's trying to figure out what happened with Maggie. She knows the name Collins triggers Maggie a lot, and this leads her to want to go to Collinwood. And she tells Dave Woodard, "Hey, we can follow this disguise where I'm this historian, and I'm writing a book about the families of New England, of the coast. We can do, let's do that." And so they everybody buys this that doesn't know about it. Elizabeth buys it, Victoria buys it, Carolyn buys it. So Dr. Hoffman begins investigating. Keep in mind, you've had Victoria who swore she almost saw Maggie Evans at the cemetery, and it's because Dr. Hoffman took her to the cemetery. That's before Burke's plane crash. I know I kind of skipped over that, but I wanted to give that a quick mention. So what again? Nobody knows Maggie's alive other than Joe, her father, and Dr. Woodard. And you have a very interesting scenario where the doctor, Dr. Julia Hawkins, goes in the Collinwood and she's investigating. And they tell her, if you really want to know about our family history, you got to talk to our historian, Barnabas. So keep in mind in the beginning, Roger was kind of your historian. Now that role has switched to Barnabas because he's an older character and he has already shown he's a lot more familiar with the family than what Roger is. Because again, he's older by 100 plus years. Barnabas is reluctant to talk to Julie. He just finds her nosy. He's not wrong. And while Barnabas is looking in the family history book, Julia pulls out a mirror and sees that Barnabas cast no reflection. And here's where I'm going to leave this, my friends, because this, my friends, is the beginning of a very interesting, hostile, sometimes crazy relationship, more than sometimes, crazy relationship with doctor and patient. It's going to be very, very interesting to come back to this. I hope you all have a good night and take care.